Welcome everyone to Hats Off to Our Champions. We're so glad you could join us tonight. It's just at the top of the hour, so we're going to give a minute for everybody to join. Just a little housekeeping while we're waiting. All of your lines are muted. We are in a webinar, and if you have questions or comments, we would love to see your comments in the chat. And any questions that you want to ask to any of our panelists tonight, you can put in the Q&A or in chat. We have folks who will be monitoring that as the evening goes on. So sit back and enjoy. We're going to give another 30 seconds or so. While you're waiting, why don't you put into chat how many years you've been walking with us and what color flower you walk with. Oh, lots of great answers in here. 6 years, 6 to 8 years, 10 years. I don't know how many years. This is fantastic. And yes, I see someone who's looking forward to receiving their new baseball cap. We are looking forward to it too. It's a great cap. Okay, well, we are at 6:02, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to introduce you to Stephanie Dole, who will be your MC for the evening.
Thank you so much, Deb. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you tonight. My name is Stephanie Dole, and I am the mission chair this year for the Silicon Valley Walk to End Alzheimer's. And this is my 5th year walking, and I have walked 4 years before, all with the Silicon Valley Walk. And I'll tell you a little more about my mission with the Alzheimer's Association at the end. But we have a lot of things happening tonight. So here's our agenda. We're going to have a mission moment, some updates about our chapters, some advocacy updates as well, and then also some updates about the latest in research advancements. And then we'll have a closing mission moment from me to help encourage you to get out there and fundraise. And we're so glad to have you with us tonight because our champions are so special to us. You are really what keeps this walk going, and your fundraising is just outstanding and amazing and always makes us so ecstatic each year. So to begin with tonight, we're going to have a mission moment from Pam Montara and Steve Baberi. Pam is on the governing board for the Alzheimer's Prevention and Preparedness Task Force here in California, and she's also a former board member for the Alzheimer's Association. And Stephen is currently a member of the Northern California and Northern Nevada Board of Directors. Both were diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and they both had other obligations tonight, but have made an amazing video for us to watch. So let's sit back and watch the video from Pam and Stephen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Barbieri, and I'm participating in the Modesto Walk, and I have for about the last, I think, 5 years. I was actually diagnosed with early onset dementia October 2012, so that's almost 9 years. So I've been very fortunate. I've been living strong with my dementia diagnosis here for the last year. Like I said, I participated in the Modesto Walk, and I've been actually one of the top fundraisers, either number 1 or number 2 for the last 5 years. And I'm super excited to have my friend Pam Montana here with me. Pam, take it away.
Thank you, Stephen. Hi, everyone. As Stephen said, my name is Pam Montana. I live in the East Bay. I live in Danville. And I got my diagnosis of early stage, early onset Alzheimer's in 2016. And I was pretty devastated. And I kind of just didn't really know what to do. So I immediately just jumped on the Alzheimer's bandwagon and got connected through, social media, and got connected to everybody in Northern California, Northern Nevada. And so since then, this is kind of like my full-time job. My whole job is around Alzheimer's research, using my voice, sharing my story, and really trying to remove the stigma of this disease. And one other little snippet I have to put in there is I grew up in Modesto. So I'm a Modestoite myself, and I moved away from there when I went to college.
Wonderful. Glad to have you here today, Pam. So let me get started with a quick question that actually relates to both of us. We've both been very engaged and active in participating in clinical trials. Both have been in clinical trials at UCSF up there in San Francisco. It's been nice. We've actually run into each other on the same day. We took some photos together. We had our arms with the IVs in them and everything. So why has it been so important for you to be engaged in clinical trials?
Yeah, great question. Honestly, I want to help be part of the cure. I want to help us find a cure. And without clinical trials, we never will. And so that was one of the most important things to me, that and getting engaged with the Alzheimer's Association and using my voice. I've spoken all over the country, and that's great, but that's not advocacy, and that's not helping us with finding a cure, other than, getting the word out. And so I thankfully was able to get connected with UC San Francisco Memory and Aging Center, which is where Stephen and I have seen each other. And I was in one trial that was canceled. It was Roche Genentech trial. And I was kind of sad, but then when I heard that I had just been getting the placebo, I was kind of okay with it. And then I guess it's been almost 2 years now. I've been on the Eli Lilly Tau trial, and that's about to end. So, anything I can do to be part of the science and to, help us find a cure is why I'm all in for trials.
Wonderful. The Biogen trial on a tau drug as well with Biogen. So let's move on to the next question. What are some of the benefits you've seen kind of from participating in these clinical trials? Because you've been in more than one.
Yes. Well, first off, I just want to kind of give a shout out for UC San Francisco, and I guess maybe UC Davis and anything else in California that I'm aware of, because the people that they hire there are amazing, and they really have become part of our extended family. As far as the benefits, it just gives me purpose. I mean, this is my purpose. This is my life. This is what after 16 years at Intel, I took a couple days after my diagnosis, and now I'm 100%, actually 1,000%, all about Alzheimer's, all about the Alzheimer's Association, all about trials, all about research, all about using my voice. So, it's just something that I felt very, very strongly about, regardless of whether it was working or not working. I mean, that's how we learn, right? You have to have failed trials in order to get the next one.
And I've heard you say before that this is your job. So that's what you feel important. This is why I wake up with a purpose. This is my job. So we're very thrilled and excited about that. And there's been a lot of information in the news lately about the new drug that recently got approved by the FDA, Aduhelm, I believe is what they're calling the drug now that it's been passed, has been approved by the FDA. It's a new drug that's going to possibly slow down the progression of Alzheimer's and cognitive decline in the trials. We know this isn't a cure, but could mean a lot for a lot of people to give them more time for those that have early diagnosis. What does more time mean to you, Pam?
It means everything, quite frankly. I also spoke to the FDA early on last year to get them to kind of push this through, and it was all about hope and more time. And so for me, I know there are a lot of naysayers and a lot of folks kind of talking bad about it. But for me, as I mentioned earlier when we were kind of checking in, my doctor, who is, one of the well-known doctors, I guess I'll say, at UCSF, told me that I was a perfect candidate for Aduhelm. And she knows what's in my brain. She knows how many APO4, APO3, I have in my brain. And I was going to do it anyway. It's a big commitment, as you know. It's a long drive, as you know. But honestly, again, this is my job. And so if there's anything I can do to have more time with my family, I mean, we have a grandson that's 1. Maybe I won't see him graduate from high school, but I'd really maybe like to be there when he graduated from grammar school. And so every minute, every day is precious to me. And so anything I can do is to slow this down and to stay at the same place I am right now, I'm all in.
Awesome. That's exciting to hear.
Yes.
Well, thank you again very much, Pam, for being here today. Do you have any exciting things you can share for us that you're doing this year for fundraising for the walk? Any creative ideas or things you've done over and over again that's been very successful for you?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I have a new thing. So I worked at Intel for 16 years. I mentioned that. And one of my dear friends, his name's Terry Raymond. I'm going to put it out there. He's always been extremely generous. And every year since I've been diagnosed, he's given us quite a bit of money. well, we're all Giants fans. Our family's Giants fans, and Terry Raymond is a Giants fan. And so this year, his fundraiser is for us, for our team, is every time Mike Yastrzemski on the Giants hits a home run, he's donating $100 to our walk. And he's going to wait until the end of the year or end of October. My husband jumped on the bandwagon, and he is also going to donate $100 or is donating $100 every time Yaz hits a home run.
So he's going to match it as well.
And so it's double matching. And then I talked to Brittany and some of the other folks about it, some of the walk managers, and they think we should turn this into a bigger fundraiser. And so we're reaching out to the Giants to see what Mike Yastrzemski wants to do. And so that's kind of the newest one. And other than that, Cheryl and I were talking earlier, and I do a lot of knitting, I do a lot of crafting. And so I've raised a lot of money that way through auctions. So I'll say, like, okay, between now and Tuesday, bid on this scarf. And some people put in $10, some people put in $1,000, and then I just do a round robin. I pull it out of the hat. If I'm not going to just give it to the person that gave me $1,000. I'm going to be fair about it. So I have a lot of that still. I'm still have more of that to do because again, our walk's in October. So.
Wonderful. Just to share a couple of ideas that I've done is something, and these are things that everybody can do. The first one is Facebook fundraisers. The system is built for us to be able to do a couple of clicks or whatnot. But the secret that I use when I do it is typically you can tag up to, I think my system lets me tag like 40 or 50 people, nothing more. So by tagging those people, in my opinion, you're personally inviting them or asking them. So a lot of times when you just put that fundraiser out there, people don't feel like you're talking to them. So I think it's very important that you tag people. And what I used to do is I'd start at the A's and I would find my 50 people that I think that would be interested. And then I would stop at maybe L. And then the next time I would post it, I would then start from people from L and go down to like R's. Then the next time I posted, I would go the R's to the Z's. And just from the Facebook alone there, I would tend to raise, over $1,000. That would put me at one of the fundraising levels as well. Another thing I've done for several years now is a garage sale. My wife doesn't like it because it fills up our garage quite a bit, but I contact friends and a lot of people want to get rid of things. And we're at the point now people understand I'm not out there to help them clean out the garage. I need stuff that's actually going to sell, that's going to, get some revenue or whatnot. And my garage sale started at $500 a year. Now we get an easy $1,000 off our garage sales, and we do them for 1 to 1.5 days. And that's really strong. And I've seen other people use that same idea. Another one that I did one year, this is my team shirt. My team is called EndAlz. And if you know me, I've done martial arts for many years. That's actually me on there. And actually, I can get these shirts made for somewhere around $5 or $6. And actually, I sell them for $20. You can just buy the shirt just as a fundraiser, or you can buy that shirt to get on my team. And I've sold one particular year, I sold over 200 of them. And it's funny because Cheryl once told me she saw some guy driving down Highway 99 on his Harley wearing my shirt. And I believe that was my friend Charlie that actually was wearing that shirt. So there's a lot of ideas out there for fundraisers. So I really encourage everybody, don't reinvent the wheel. If you see somebody else doing something very successful, it's very easy to just copy those and use those as well.
Yeah, Stephen, and I just want to mention something because I think it's really important, and it also kind of proliferates and expands across the Facebook network, and that is to send a thank you note to that person on Facebook with a purple background or something that's very significant. Thank you, Stephen, for your generous donation. Every time I do that, and I do it every single time for every single person, even if they only give me $10, 20 or 30 or 50 or whatever of my friends on Facebook see it and they look and they like it, and then they also, I notice some of them then hop on the bandwagon. So I think between the combination of Facebook and the thank yous and all the other kinds of things, some people do handwritten letters, those haven't been great for me, but there's just so many options out there, and I love all your fundraising ideas as well.
Wonderful. Well, Pam, I really appreciate you being here today. Again, I'm always excited to see what you're doing on Facebook. And again, thank you again for being out there, being a leader in the community, and again, for also participating in not just one, but 2 clinical trials. Again, nothing about me without me. It's very important that we're involved in these types of situations. So again, it's very blessed to have you today. And again, we're all excited about the walk for here in 2021, because in most situations, I believe they're going to be face to face this year. So we're excited to get that energy of all those people gathering together.
Yes, can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
What an incredible,
Hello,
inspiring
everyone. My name
video
is
that
Stephen
was.
Barbieri, and I'm participating in the Modesto Walk, and I have for about the last, I think, 5.
Oh, what an incredible, inspiring video. I don't know what else I can say other than that was just absolutely an amazing example of courage and advocacy and hope, and inspiring reminder of why we all participate in this walk. Thank you so much, Stephen and Pam. So next we're going to have Elizabeth Edgerly, and she is the director of our chapter, and she is going to give us an update about our chapter. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Stephanie. I had to get my hat out, even though I have a huge head and this hat is way too small. I figured hats off gives me the chance to take off my hat. And hats off to all of you, our amazing champions. We are so fortunate that we get to work with amazing people, including people like Stephanie and Stephen and Pam and all of you. So first and foremost, thank you for making our work possible and your support of the mission of the Alzheimer's Association. We sure learned a lot this past year. I keep thinking back to last year and what it was like for all of us at this time. We were learning a lot about ourselves at the time and what it was like to be in the middle of a pandemic. But we as an organization also learned a lot about the vulnerabilities of those living with dementia. And we knew this, of course, going into it. We knew that people with Alzheimer's and dementia were likely to suffer during the pandemic. But what we learned really surprised us, that people with dementia were at greater risk of developing Alzheimer's, not developing Alzheimer's, developing COVID. They were more likely to get COVID. And if they did get COVID, they were more likely to die as a result of having COVID. In addition to that, what we saw is that communities of color were also disproportionately, we know both by dementia, but also by COVID. So what we saw coming together was this really awful pattern of our constituents, those that I know you care deeply about, were disproportionately and drastically impacted during the pandemic. So much so that deaths related to Alzheimer's rose by 16% this past year. And the Alzheimer's Association was there to stand with individuals living with Alzheimer's and all types of dementia. It was absolutely critical that we lift up our voices from the mountaintops to protect their rights, to help them gain access to good quality care, to be protected from the coronavirus, get access to vaccines, and make sure that caregivers who were struggling during this time frame had help. And so those of you who participated last year, and I know it was a lot of you, you made that possible for us. You stepped up and supported the association in such a way that allowed us to be there as a lifeline for people facing what probably for many was the biggest challenge they've ever faced. So our work is about eliminating Alzheimer's and dementia through three things: advancing research, focusing on care and support for all affected, and also reducing our risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. And you're going to learn more about each of these things, but I wanted to highlight just a little bit about what your support, every time you do that Facebook fundraiser, like Stephen and Pam said, and you put it out there and you get donations, what difference does it make? It makes a huge difference. Your support enables us to do care and support for thousands upon thousands of people. And over the past year, when we had to go virtual, we shifted everything to virtual and offered over 2,000 events, support groups, classes, workshops, webinars, conferences. And these were for diverse communities as well. Our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts have been incredibly strong this past year, offering programs specifically to the African American community, in the Chinese, the Latino, really across the board, really trying to make sure that no one was facing this situation that we've all been in alone. Also, public policy. With all of the challenges in public policy this last year, you might think it was hard to pass legislation and see change there. Susan Damaris, our Director of Public Policy, is going to present. We have managed to get some things in place that will benefit our constituents, that are going to be absolutely life-changing for the people we care about. So even during a pandemic, we've been able to provide care and support public policy. And the last thing I want to mention about during the pandemic is the health systems work that we've been doing. So in health systems, our focus is helping to identify people with mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's earlier in the disease process. Often, half the time, people with dementia are never diagnosed. And of the half who are diagnosed, half are never told of what their diagnosis is. So if you do the math, that only leaves 25% of the whole who gets diagnosed and is told. Now, we just were talking about Aduhelm and a new drug available for Alzheimer's. I know Claire Day is going to present in a little bit. She's going to tell you more about Aduhelm. But let me just say that most people are diagnosed too late to access Aduhelm. And granted, we have to figure out the cost and access and all of those things, but let's imagine we were successful in reducing the cost and we were successful in getting insurance to cover it. We still have to find people early. And the only way we're going to do that is to rally health systems to do that. And we have had some major wins. Just 2 weeks ago, we signed one of the largest health systems in the country to a new practice that will affect 1.3 million people, and starting to have their physicians check them early to see if there's something of concern. So that's the kind of work that's going to make a huge difference so that any of us could find out early enough to do something about it. And the last thing I want to mention before I turn it over to Susan is about our research efforts. I know Claire's going to talk about the US Pointer study and some other new developments. A lot of your support is also helping the Alzheimer's Association be a leader in Alzheimer's support. And what we're currently funding is $235 million in 650 projects across the world. We're providing funding in 39 different countries. And development like drugs like Aduhelm, we're also funding some early drugs looking at tau and neuroinflammation. Some amazing things are coming together. We're also influencing practice as we go along. So with any new development like a drug or a blood test, you have to have standards in place. And so in addition to supporting the development of these things, we're behind the scenes helping everybody get on board with what is it going to take to put it into practice. And so again, you and your work on the walk is funding all of that. And I really mean it when I say we could not do the work we do without all of you. So hats off to you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Susan Damaris, our Director of Public Policy and Advocacy. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and hello, everybody. I've been looking in the participants list and I see lots of familiar names. I wish I could see all your faces right now, but I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about our wins in public policy and advocacy in the state of California and Nevada. So we'll go ahead and move to the next slide, which Deb thought might have been out of order. but it wasn't. Usually we end with a thank you, but I wanted to start with a thank you because all of the victories and successes I'm about to share with you, I know many of you on this call tonight had a hand. Your fingerprints are all over these wins because many of you are also advocates. You're ambassadors, you're on congressional teams, you're state champions, and you respond to text messages where you write, you send messages off to members of Congress and our state legislatures. So thank you. I want you to share in this success because you made it all possible. We're going to start with the next slide talking about some of the victories we had in our state legislatures. So in California, we know for certain that there's $32.5 million in our state budget specifically for Alzheimer's disease programs. Until this year, the most ever devoted to Alzheimer's disease programs specifically was $5 million. So this year we're looking at $32.5 million. And you heard from Pam Montana earlier and Stephen Barbieri. They're both involved in statewide committees that have influenced this. But that's not it. In addition to the $32.5 million, we expect about another $100 million to come through this month in California's state budget to fund workforce initiatives in long-term care, things that aren't Alzheimer's specific, but directly impact and improve the quality of life for our community. So we're looking at workforce initiatives, some geriatric training, and a whole host of other initiatives, expansions of the Medi-Cal program, all totaling $100 million. And for those of you who've been involved in our state advocacy, who went to Advocacy Day in Sacramento, we introduced a bill, SB 48, and that bill has moved through 5 different committees and it's on the home stretch now. And that bill will provide payment incentives to doctors who offer early screening, early detection and screening to their patients. And it's going to be coupled, those payments that they're going to get will be combined with some physician training on dementia that we know is sorely needed. Switching gears to Nevada, we're thrilled that the governor signed our sponsored bill into law, AB 216. And what that does is it provides, it expands Medicaid coverage in Nevada to individuals who are under age 65. Younger onset individuals who aren't eligible yet for Medicare will now be covered for screening, detection, and care planning in Nevada. Nevada has a wonderful respite program that's state funded. And at the beginning of the year with the pandemic, we were worried it would be cut back, and we fought hard to keep it. And we actually expanded funding for respite. And we also just learned on July 1st that we got a public health grant in Nevada to fund some community forums focused on equity all around the state and to continue the public awareness efforts around dementia. Many of you in Nevada have probably seen those ads that the state of Nevada is paying for through the public health campaign. And on the next slide, we'll talk about our federal wins. I hope many of these are familiar to you. The way the federal fiscal year works, I wanted to be sure you knew about 2020, that we, all of us, boosted federal research funding for Alzheimer's above $3 billion annually for the first time ever. I saw some of you at the beginning have been walking for 20 years, 30 years. Well, you know what it was like when you started. It wasn't $3 billion a year, and we have you to thank for that. We also passed the Younger Onset Alzheimer's Act so that area agencies on aging can offer services to people who are under 65. Previously, they weren't eligible. We did some work around elder abuse awareness with the Department of Justice and the BOLD Act, which is our public health infrastructure for Alzheimer's. For any of you who participated in our forum this year, which was virtual, our federal policy forum, we have 5 initiatives we're working on. These are all live and active right now. We're continuing our request to increase NIH, National Institutes of Health funding for Alzheimer's research above the $3.1 billion. We are very proud. You heard Elizabeth talk about our health systems work. We're working with the Centers for Medicaid Services so that Medicare can now test some models of truly comprehensive care that encompass screening, detection, diagnosis, and care planning. We're focusing with the ENACT Act on equity in research to make sure that all participants reflect the diversity of our country and that more people participate so that when a new drug is developed, we're certain that it will work for all Americans. We're continuing to ask for funding for the BOLD Public Health Act. And then we have an Alzheimer's Caregiver Training Act that we're also working on. So we'll be continuing these federal priorities well into the fall and likely beyond, because federal legislation usually takes more than 1 year. And with the last slide, I know that many of you are already advocates. Some of you are the AIM Advocacy Chair for your walk. But if you have any interest in joining the movement to end Alzheimer's, it's as simple as texting. And I'm going to pause for a second here. Anyone who has their phone with them, I encourage you to text AIM Walk to 52886. And we will be at every single walk in Northern California and Nevada. We'll have a public policy booth, and we'll be asking everybody who's walking to text AIM Walk to 52886 to grow our advocacy movement in Northern California and Nevada and across the whole country. So thanks for letting me join you tonight, and I'll see you at a handful of walks in Northern California and Nevada.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was wonderful and so encouraging to hear all of that incredible news. Now I'd like to turn it over to Claire Day, our Chief Programs Officer, who's going to talk to us about the latest advancement for Alzheimer's research. Claire?
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, and everybody for being with us tonight. We know that you have lots of choices and the things that you can do, and we're so grateful that you're here with us tonight. So I'm going to attempt in 10 minutes to share with you something that would normally take about a half an hour. So I want to say that to say there's a longer version of this program if you like the science, if you want to hear about some of the latest and greatest on what puts you at advanced risk of developing Alzheimer's and dementia, or what's happening in the science world, to let us know, and we'll get you connected to one of those subjects. But tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about risk factors and what we know, what the latest we know about some of these new treatments, as Dr. Edgerly referred to. So Alzheimer's disease, as we know, is not typical aging. It has many causes and risk factors. And if you remember one thing from today, it should be that Alzheimer's is not a part of normal aging. Yes, as we age, we're all going to, it's going to take us a little bit longer to remember some of those, walk into a room and remember why we walked in there. But it's really, not how you're supposed to age is not by losing thinking, remembering, and that ability to function independently. We think about risk factors as far as things that we can and cannot control. So on the left-hand side here, you can see popping up, these are the things that we can't control. We're all getting older every day. We can't control our genes or our race or ethnicity. But we can control things that are considered to be modifiable risk factors. And we're learning a lot more today about how those modifiable risk factors impact our risk of developing dementia. Things like environmental life factors, our cardiovascular health, what's good for our heart is good for our brain. Physical activity, where can we get some physical activity? How about the walk to end Alzheimer's? Good sleep, social and cognitive engagement, as well as the type of education we get, and traumatic brain injury. And so it's going to be important for us to think about these modifiable risk factors as we start to think about some things that are going on in our community to help answer some of these questions. But until we come up with that wonderful end result of a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia, we have to take what we can get. And today, we know that there are several medications available that currently treat the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. only FDA approved to treat Alzheimer's, but sometimes prescribed for other types of dementia due to other causes. And these are really only approved to treat individuals in specific dementia stages. And that's really important. You heard Elizabeth talk about that with the new drug that has recently been approved by the FDA. Now, these drugs, and we're talking about these first lot of drugs here, are really only designed to as sort of cognitive enhancers. They're treating the symptoms of the disease. They're not going to stop or reverse the disease. They're not necessarily effective in all individuals, and they can support a person's cognition for a period of time. But you can see here that the last drug to come to market, if we sort of exclude the 2014 combination therapy of both Aricept and Namenda, the last drug to come to market was in 2003, almost 2 decades ago. And these drugs, like I mentioned, are really, if you think about the analogy to a pain medication, you don't take a pain medication. If you have cancer, you don't take a pain medication to stop the cancer, to treat the cancer. It treats the symptoms around the cancer. And that's what these therapies were designed to do. Most are really do not modify or slow the disease itself. The good news is that many drugs in clinical trials today are designed to do just that. Aduhelm, or aducanumab, as you heard Elizabeth talk about, was granted accelerated approval by the FDA on June 7th, 2021. This is the first treatment that addresses the underlying biology of Alzheimer's disease. Aducanumab targets and reduces amyloid in the brains of individuals with Alzheimer's, which is reasonably likely to lead to a reduction in clinical decline due to Alzheimer's disease. And as Elizabeth mentioned, the important takeaway is that this treatment was studied in people living with early Alzheimer's dementia and mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's, who showed evidence of a buildup of amyloid plaque in the brain. So that presence of that amyloid target is really going to be important in the way that aducanumab gets potentially prescribed. Now, these are early days. We know that there have been a lot of conversations about access, how we'll pay for these medications. These are all questions that we don't have the answers to yet. But I think what's exciting about this is that since the approval of aducanumab, we've seen more activity about other therapeutics that might be also eligible for this, what we call this accelerated approval by the FDA. And what that means is not necessarily that it's faster. It's the accelerated approval means that there is a need to find an effective treatment for a disease. And we all know that Alzheimer's and dementia meets that qualification. And so it is an exciting time when we think about effective treatments. We know that there are lots of things being tested right now in the research world around not just the cognitive, the memory and thinking, learning and planning, but also around some of those behavioral
I think we're having some technical difficulties with Claire. Hopefully she'll be back with us in a minute, because I've been following aptly like everyone else. So, you know what? I'm going to throw this back to Stephanie. I'm going to share my screen and we'll have Stephanie give her mission moment. And then when we get Claire back, we'll bring Claire back with us.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Thanks. And as soon as Claire's back, just let me know and we'll get back to her. So thank you everyone for attending, and hopefully we'll get back to that presentation too in a moment. So for me, I came to the Walk to End Alzheimer's because my mother, Gabrielle Stevens, passed away from Alzheimer's disease in 2016 after many years battling the disease. And for me, the Alzheimer's Association was a tremendous source of information and support. I used the website extensively and I attended support groups because for me, I was in a situation of, I was only 39 years old when my mother passed, and many of my friends have often said I was kind of the pioneer of our group because my parents were older and I've lost both of them now. And so for me, the association was just finding out the facts and what I needed to know and what I could expect and how I could help care for my mom and how I could help my father care for my mom. And so after my mom passed, I decided that I wanted to start giving back to this wonderful organization. And that's when I started doing the walk. I looked up the walk and found out it was in October and said, okay, I'm going to start doing it. So 2017 was my first walk. And that first year, I think because of having recently lost my mom, people were incredibly generous and I made champion right away. So I decided, okay, I'm going to keep doing that goal every year. Well, like many of you, I came to the walk last year thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to fundraise during a pandemic, especially because a lot of the things that I did to fundraise for the walk were things like I would have kids' nights in at my house where I'd invite my kids' friends and my friends' children to come in and have a night at my house, and I'd cook them dinner and show them a movie, and I'd just ask that the family donate to my walk, whatever amount they wanted to. So last year I started doing a fundraiser where I sewed face masks with bugs on them. So I ended up exceeding all of my fundraising goals and making it to $5,000 last year. So this year, going into this, I've decided to double my goal, and I hope maybe some of you will do that as well. So I'm trying for $10,000 this year. And I also have increased my involvement by becoming the mission chair. And this is my way every year of remembering my mother and also giving thanks to the Alzheimer's Association for everything that they did for me and my family, and all the help that we got in caring for and dealing with this horrible disease. So thank you so much. And it sounds like maybe we've got Claire back. Is that true, Deb?
Oh my
That is true. Yes. So we'll go back.
Wonderful. Okay. So we'll rewind now and we'll hear the rest of what Claire has to say about all of the hopeful treatments that are coming up.
Oh my goodness, I am so very sorry. This is, if we've learned anything over the last 18 months, it would be about flexibility. And I don't know what happened. I think my my internet just completely conked out on me. So I think we were about here. Were we talking about clinical trials? Is that kind of where we were? Something like that. So I'm just going to go from here.
We were on the previous slide when you froze.
Okay, talking about all of the great research that's happening, and then I went on to talk about the importance of, you know, what we have in the pipeline for clinical trials. You can see here in phases 1, 2, and 3. That would mean there are all kinds of different levels of progress with those clinical trials. We have 121 trials in phase 1. We have 180 trials in phase 2. Phase 2 is where they're going to do a lot of safety and dosing testing. And then phase 3, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is when they're going to expand those trials to large numbers. We want to make sure that we get an effective treatment for all. And so there's always a need for diverse participants in all of these clinical trials. We want to make sure that we're not just studying intervention treatments like we've seen prescribed before, but also looking at all of those things that we talked about earlier around risk reduction. So here you can see that research is beginning to show us how combining multiple healthy factors may be the most impactful. If you remember those circles where we looked at all of those modifiable risk factors, physical activity, cognitive and social stimulation, healthy diet, those were all things that you saw, things that we can change. They're not easy behaviors to change, but they're certainly things that research has shown us are good things to do to lead a brain healthy lifestyle, and that shouldn't just be something we do in older life, but for all of us to learn about what it means to lead a brain healthy lifestyle. And so I'm going to give you some results of a couple of studies that we have evidence towards that support this. So the first is looking at those health factors around cardiovascular risk factors. And that's a study that called the Sprint Mind study. And this was the first study to demonstrate a reduction of new cases of cognitive impairment. And research suggests that you may reduce your risk of mild cognitive impairment and dementia by addressing some of these risk factors. So if you think about this study, the Sprint Mind study finds that controlling blood pressure, now that's again one of those modifiable risk factors, to 120 systolic decreased our risk for developing mild cognitive impairment and dementia. This trial explored this, and they tested whether intensively treating blood pressure would decrease one's risk for developing cognitive impairment and dementia. What's exciting about this is that you can see it was a large study, over 9,000 people over the age of 50. These were people that did not have dementia. They were at a higher risk of developing dementia. And there were two arms to this intervention, a standard arm as well as an intensive arm. And at the time, the standard arm, which was where they kept your systolic about 140, was considered to be normal blood pressure at the time. And what they found was a dramatic reduction of small vessel disease on MRI. And here you can see a 19% reduced risk of developing mild cognitive impairment, a 17% reduced risk of developing dementia. And when you looked at both of those together, you saw 15% reduced risk. And the good news about this is they're going to expand this study to what they're calling the Sprint Mind 2.0 to really look at people beyond the original time frame of those the first 7 years of the clinical trial and see what kind of progress we can make. And I think what's really exciting about this trial, two things. One is that people that were kept in that original 140 standard arm, the trial was sort of stopped earlier on because the results in the intensive treatment were so good that they found it was unethical to keep people at a higher systolic. The other thing that's exciting is this is something every single one of us can do today to monitor our blood pressure. And if you have high blood pressure, talk to your doctor. Think about how you can get it reduced. People in this study received blood pressure medication. It wasn't just about diet and exercise, and get that blood pressure lowered so you can reduce your risk of developing mild cognitive impairment and dementia. But the most exciting thing that I think we have is the embarking on this large scale clinical trial to study a multi-domain lifestyle intervention and its impact on reducing risk for cognitive decline. The big answer that we have to question is what would happen if we layer on additional components to those lifestyle intervention approaches to reduce the risk of cognitive decline. So the Alzheimer's Association is actually conducting this landmark multi-domain lifestyle intervention clinical trial here in the United States. It's the first trial of its kind ever to be conducted in the US, and it builds off of the success that was conducted in Finland, a trial called the FINGER trial, that found that a multi-domain lifestyle intervention trial can reduce risk of cognitive decline in elderly at-risk Finnish population. So what we're going to do here at Pointer in the US is test whether two lifestyle interventions encouraging physical exercise, a healthy diet, cognitive and social activities, and that health monitoring, so looking at things like blood pressure and diabetes, can reduce risk of memory changes in older adults who are already at risk for memory loss. There will be two lifestyle interventions compared, what we call a self-guided and then a structured lifestyle group. So this is kind of self-explanatory. One gets hands-on treatment, one's on their own. And what's really exciting, as you can see here by this map, Northern California is on it. Based out of UC Davis at School of Medicine in Sacramento, the Alzheimer's Association's second site in this trial was named as Northern California. And so we here at the Northern California, Northern Nevada chapter are playing a hands-on role in helping to answer this question. In addition to this core study, there have been additional studies funded by the National Institute on Aging to understand the impact of how these interventions on emerging aspects of the disease. So what's important to note is that this was through an investment with the Alzheimer's Association, $35 million. When we talk about the Walk to End Alzheimer's and its commitment to ending Alzheimer's, this is how that kind of thing happens, is through amazing participation in things like the Walk to End Alzheimer's. So these 4 what they call ancillary studies are going to be going alongside to look at neuroimaging. So they're going to be able to look at the changes in the brain as a result of the interventions. They're going to look at sleep and the importance of sleep. We're learning more and more about it, and how sleep disturbances might be linked. They're going to look at the gut, at the microbiome, right? They're going to use fecal and blood samples to investigate the effect of diet and exercise on the association between bacteria in the gut and Alzheimer's. And then neurovascular, we're going to look at the interventions on blood vessel function and how they might be linked to these changes. This is happening across the world, and I think that's what's so exciting. I mentioned Finland was the start of all of this, and you can see all of these other countries that have joined along with us to join in what we call worldwide fingers. And this is so important because to be able to slow and change the trajectory of this disease will have a major impact. All of the science we have been talking about, all of the science that we see boils down to an effort to change the trajectory of Alzheimer's disease and other dementia. And we believe that if we can develop a treatment by 2025, this could be medicines, it could be through lifestyle intervention that could delay the onset of Alzheimer's by just 5 years. Then it is projected that 5.7 million Americans expected to develop Alzheimer's by 2050 would not. And that's huge. You can get involved more about getting involved with the clinical trial, like you saw Stephen and Pam participate in through something called Trial Match. You heard Elizabeth talk about all the great programs and services that we do, and there's a link to them all here. And if you're interested in being a science geek, the Alzheimer's Association Science Hub app is the app for you. And so I thank you all. I apologize again for my technical difficulties, and I now graciously give the stage back to Stephanie and Deb to continue our presentation.
Thank you so much, Claire. I'm so glad we got to hear the rest of that incredible information. So now I'm going to turn it over to Deb, the Senior Director, Deb Anderson, the Senior Director of the Silicon Valley Walk to End Alzheimer's, and we'll have some questions and answer time.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So we have a policy question here. Before I ask this question, so Susan, you're on tap for this. If you have any other questions, please put them into the Q&A so that we can see them easily. And here is the policy question, Susan. Will Walk ever, I think maybe it's the association, it says, will Walk ever support legislation to make people with an Alzheimer's diagnosis eligible for AB 282?
So I'm not sure what AB 282 is. Let me, so I can't answer that. If you want to go to the next question, I'll look it up real quickly and have a reply.
Okay, well, I will riff here because we don't have any other questions, but so if you can put it in chat or into the Q&A, and we will ask anybody else have any other questions. After all of this great information, you must. I do see one, but we have access to the slide deck. We will be having a replay link available for tonight's presentation. So you can certainly access it via that. AB 282 is the California Death with Dignity law, Susan.
Got it. So I would have to look at the bill. That's a topic that's come up many times over the last 15 or 20 years. And each time it comes up, the association evaluates the legislation as it's written and arrives at a position. Sometimes our position is to have no position. So whoever that is, I'd be so happy to talk to you at length about this topic. I'll put my phone number in the chat. So I don't know the particulars of that bill to give you the answer today. I know that we're neither supporting or opposing it currently in California. So I'll put that in the chat, and I'd love to have a follow-up.
Great. And here's another one that came in from Mike. Is there data, and this may be for Claire, is there data about the increased risk of developing Alzheimer's if a person's parents had it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, you know, we know more and more, we're learning more and more about genetics and the role that genetics plays. And certainly having one parent or two parents who have Alzheimer's or dementia certainly puts you at an increased risk. Although, you know, it's not the only answer. So there's a lot of work looking at some of the genes associated with Alzheimer's disease, and you can have the gene and never develop the disease. And so it certainly increases your risk. And you hear us say that a lot because right now that's the focus. We know what increases our risk and we don't know. I always kind of look at it like we know what's happening in the brain, we don't know why. And so it's important to be aware if you have family history. And I think if you have a family history, you should absolutely be looking at things like sleep and all of those modifiable risk factors like diet and exercise. And there's lots of great research. All of those things have been individually studied. And so what Pointer is going to do is put them all together and see what happens if we put them all together. But individually, there's enough research there to help you make some good decisions there when you get if you have a family connection or just anyone if you're interested in reducing your risk.
Great. And Claire, one more for you. Is there an increased or how is sleep health and Alzheimer's associated? I have to scroll back up.
Yeah, so sleep, they're looking at sleep from a couple of different angles, right? So they're looking at sleep as far as, are you getting enough of it? Are you getting good sleep, restful sleep, right? Where your brain rests. But then in addition to that, things like sleep apnea, where they're looking at, you know, what having sleep apnea increases your risk of dementia. Elizabeth can correct me because I've probably got these numbers wrong, but somewhere in the 20 to 30% range was some of the sleep apnea studies that came out a few years ago. And so we think about it from what everybody needs to do as far as having good night's rest. And if you're interested in what that means, I would really recommend you Googling sleep hygiene. And it's eye-opening when you think about our devices and how connected we are and all of the things that we probably do that is really not good sleep hygiene that we don't even realize are potentially affecting our night's sleep. And then if you have the medical condition of sleep apnea, then definitely, you know, talk to your doctor and see about getting that treated to reduce your risk.
Great. There are some other great questions in, and now they're coming in, of course, and we were just about toward the top of the hour. So we will answer some of these offline and get back to folks. So we'll send those answers out along with the link to the replay. So I want to turn it back over to Stephanie now just for some closing remarks. And thank you all again for attending tonight.
Thank you, Deb and Susan and Claire for answering those questions and for participating in this event. Yeah, so thank you to all of our champions, though, first and foremost, because this event is for you. And we hope you've gotten good information and inspiration and that you'll go out. If you haven't already registered for your walk, go to alz.org/walk, enter your zip code to find out what your close by walk is, and you can go ahead and register. We want to see all of our teams getting re-registered for the year, and we encourage you then to get your fundraising started and to maybe up your goal this year because people are feeling generous and people are feeling excited to be back out. And a reminder that our walks are going to be in person again with COVID precautions, and that we will also have the app that you used last year, in fact, an enhanced version of that app that you can walk with as well if you don't want to walk in person. So thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful evening, stay safe, and we look forward to walking with you shortly.